Okay, I'm going to try this video again. I was going to talk just about the Strikeforce card that came on the weekend, but actually I am going to talk about it. But I'm going to talk about one thing I noticed coming out of it, and this is a response to what Instant Classics video was, and also JR Sports Brief's video. And they posed this question of, can professional wrestlers make it in MMA? Now, it seems to me that this Lashley fight has inspired a lot of this die-hard MMA fans slating professional wrestling and slating professional wrestlers. Now, if we're going to have this debate about professional wrestlers making it in MMA, why are we just excluding it to just professional wrestlers, like they're the only ones that can't make it in the sport? And if you look through the history of the sport, just to get this out there, you'll know that some of the greatest fighters in mixed martial arts history actually were, believe it or not, professional wrestlers. And it's something that a lot of MMA fans leave out, and it's something a lot of MMA fighters, by the way, who talk about this, cough cough Pat Miletich, who seem to overlook at certain times. If you look through the history of the sport, you'll see a guy like Kazushi Sakuraba, who everyone recognizes as one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time and a great pioneer. Oh, what a legacy he had, and guy that broke down the Gracies. But what people don't realize is actually before he was an MMA fighter, he was a professional wrestler. He wanted to be a professional wrestler before he went into MMA. Before there was even an MMA around in Japan, he was a professional wrestler. He wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was in UWFI, and then he wound up in Pride. You look through the history of someone like a Ken Shamrock, who granted is no way near in his prime right now, but is still considered a legend in the sport. And if you check his history, you'll know that actually he was a professional wrestler long before he ever went into mixed martial arts. The same thing is applied to Dan Severn, who did both at the same time at certain points of his career, and wrestled professionally prior to being into MMA. And people recognize Severn as a legend. People hold him in very high regard. He's a Hall of Famer in the UFC and all of those things. Yet people, again, they overlook that. Now, to me, it feels like a lot of MMA people are being very selective about this. I noticed this when Brock Lesnar first came in and Lesnar smashed everybody. If we're going to have this debate, then really the question you should be asking is, what type of person can make it in MMA? A maths teacher can make it in MMA, a Republican can make it in MMA, an electrical engineer can make it in MMA, a social worker can make it in MMA. It could be anyone. To me, it takes certain qualities, such as a certain level of a certain work ethic, a certain mindset, and a certain type of there's certain types of people who can fight in mixed martial arts, because you realize that you're pretty much dedicating your entire life to this sport. 12-week camps, having to eat a certain way, having to train a certain way, having to, fight and face adversity during camping, during a fight. Uh, and to me, it takes a certain type of person. And to just say, oh, it's only the professional wrestlers, they can't make it, I think that's a nonsense statement. Not that any one of the two people I'm responding to has made that comment, and but there are a lot of die-hard MMA people who have that opinion, and MMA fighters I've noticed. And another thing I've noticed is whenever something happens, like trash talking on that, then they say it's too professional wrestling and it's bad for the sport. Well, what you have to realize is that in the 90s, when John McCain wanted MMA and UFC pretty much banned, they weren't making any money. They were struggling. They were a struggling business. And it was only until certain things that were almost professional wrestling like started to happen is when the sport started to change. And all right, look at Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen, by the way, and that's another one, by the way. Chael Sonnen had a tryout with WCW Power Plant, and he was a big fan of professional wrestling. If Chael hadn't talked in the way that he had talked, and promoted the fight in the way that he had, I almost guarantee you right now that no one would have watched that fight, and that's my honest opinion. So anyways, I'm gonna kind of leave it there. I'm almost waffling. Oh, another one is Dave Batista, who apparently wants to get into MMA. Now that is a different story altogether. We just don't know. We will only know when he gets in there and fights. But from what I understand, he does Muay Thai and some stand-up MMA training. There's videos out there on YouTube if you want to have a look at them. Um, who knows what happens? Do I think he would do well? From what I know of, compare him to other guys, maybe not. Given his age and given the level of experience he has in combat fighting, I don't know. But then again, he might come out and surprise us. You can't really answer that question until he goes out and fights. So, anyways, I'm gonna kind of stop right there. I'm waffling. I'm pretty tired. Write whatever you want. Let me know what you think, and I think that will be it. See you in a bit.